Canada's job market is collapsing under pressure, yet while Canadians are struggling to find work, immigrants are being prioritized. Is this the ugly truth no one wants to talk about? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will reveal why locals feel like strangers in their own workforce. Chapter 1. The shifting job market. Over the last decade, Canada's job market has gone through a profound transformation. Entire industries have shifted in structure, and immigration has played a huge role in reshaping the workforce. Companies continue to argue that foreign workers are needed to fill gaps, yet Canadians say the so-called shortage has been deliberately created. Employers often bypass qualified locals in favor of those willing to work longer hours for less pay, leading to an environment where Canadian workers feel sidelined in their own economy. What was once a balanced system has tilted toward employers' advantage, leaving Canadian-born job seekers frustrated and underrepresented. Young Canadians in particular are feeling the brunt of this change. Entry-level jobs that once offered opportunities for growth are increasingly crowded, with immigrants competing for the same positions. Many of these new workers are highly motivated and willing to accept wages or conditions Canadians would reject, creating an uneven playing field. This leaves many young people without a fair start in their careers, generating frustration and fueling resentment toward a system that appears stacked against them. The lack of opportunities for youth creates ripple effects that delay independence, home ownership, and financial stability. The broader economy has also felt the strain. Despite consistent job postings, unemployment remains stubbornly high for Canadian youth. The paradox of available jobs and high unemployment reveals that the issue is not the lack of work itself, but who gets hired and under what terms. Canadians are being passed over while companies tap into pools of immigrant labor, often because it is easier, cheaper, and more flexible for corporate needs. This leaves locals questioning their place in a job market that seems designed to exclude them. In addition to youth, middle-aged workers are also facing difficulties. Many Canadians who once enjoyed stable careers now find themselves competing against a globalized labor force. Companies can advertise jobs worldwide, drawing in candidates from across the globe, and this increases competition for Canadians at every stage of their careers. For workers in small towns and urban centers alike, the experience is the same, a growing sense that no matter their skills or experience, their chances are shrinking. The uneven spread of employment opportunities across provinces only adds to the problem. In some regions there are growth spurts, but in others significant job losses continue. Canadians in these struggling regions are forced to either relocate or settle for lower-paying jobs. Meanwhile, waves of new immigrants are strategically placed in sectors and cities where growth is strongest, leaving locals to absorb the consequences in areas where opportunities are shrinking. The gap continues to widen as some communities prosper while others decline. The result is a generational and social divide that is deepening with each passing year. Canadians under 25 are increasingly locked out of meaningful employment, while seasoned workers feel the ground shifting under them. This creates not only an economic problem, but also a cultural one, as more citizens feel left behind in their own country. The narrative of opportunity is fading, replaced by one of exclusion and frustration, and the cracks in the job market are becoming impossible to ignore. Chapter 2. The wages problem. One of the most pressing issues Canadians face is wage stagnation. Even as costs of living soar, wages are failing to keep up. Many employers are able to justify paying less because they have a steady supply of workers willing to accept those rates. Immigrants often take jobs at wages lower than what Canadians expect, either because they are new to the country or because they are under pressure to secure income quickly. This leaves Canadian-born workers squeezed in the middle, too costly for employers compared to newcomers, but too underpaid to keep up with rising expenses. The impact is felt most strongly in everyday life. Families who once managed comfortably on a single income now need multiple jobs just to keep afloat. Rising rents, food prices and fuel costs have made it impossible for stagnant wages to stretch far enough. For many Canadians, each paycheck feels smaller, not because they are earning less, but because their purchasing power is eroded month after month. This wage stagnation has created a generation of workers who feel like they are always running but never getting ahead. Employers often defend their practices by claiming they must remain competitive in a global market. Yet the truth is that lowering wages through reliance on immigrants is a deliberate strategy. By filling roles with workers who will accept less, companies cut their costs while leaving Canadian workers out of the equation. Over time, this creates a dual workforce, one that survives on suppressed wages and one that cannot find opportunities at all. This deliberate setup benefits corporations but damages society. The divide is particularly visible in industries like construction, retail, and food services. In these fields, immigrants make up a growing portion of the workforce, and wage levels reflect this shift. Canadians attempting to enter these industries find themselves priced out by competition that undermines their bargaining power. This has created a ripple effect, pushing many locals to seek jobs in different sectors where the competition may be less fierce, though often at the cost of stability and earnings. For skilled professionals, the picture isn't much brighter. Engineers, nurses, and tradespeople often report being overlooked for roles that instead go to foreign workers. These roles, once seen as stable, are no longer secure. Canadians face the double challenge of higher living expenses and reduced opportunities in sectors that used to guarantee employment. The erosion of wage standards has reshaped the idea of job security, leaving many wondering if they will ever regain what was lost. This trend has generated a rising tide of resentment. Canadians who have spent years building their education and skills now feel betrayed by a system that appears designed to keep wages low. Employers benefit from their strategies, while both immigrants and locals are caught in a cycle of exploitation. For immigrants, the appeal of working in Canada is overshadowed by being underpaid, and for Canadians, the sense of being excluded grows stronger. Together, this dynamic ensures that the wage problem is not just an economic issue, but a social one as well. Chapter 3. Corporate Exploitation and Government Policy. At the heart of the jobs crisis lies corporate exploitation. Companies have found a convenient solution to their labor needs: immigration. By promoting the idea of worker shortages, they pressure the government to open doors wider, all while quietly reaping the benefits of a cheaper workforce. The government, eager to present immigration as an economic success story, complies, leaving Canadian workers to carry the burden of these decisions. Programs designed to fill temporary gaps in the workforce have become long-term strategies for many employers. Instead of hiring and training Canadian workers, companies turn to temporary foreign worker programs, using them as a way to undercut wages and avoid obligations to local employees. This reliance on foreign labor is no longer a short-term fix, but a deeply ingrained part of corporate planning, and it weakens the overall bargaining power of Canadian workers. The government's policies have only reinforced this trend. By celebrating record immigration numbers, leaders point to growth while ignoring the cracks beneath the surface. Behind the speeches about diversity and opportunity lies a workforce divided by exploitation. Canadians increasingly see their leaders as being out of touch with the struggles they face, especially when jobs go unfilled for them while being handed to newcomers under the banner of progress. Corporations benefit the most from this arrangement. With more control over who they hire and what they pay, businesses cut costs at the expense of fairness. The narrative of needing workers to fill shortages hides the truth. Many companies simply prefer not to hire Canadians. For them, immigration is not about solving a problem, but about creating one they can exploit to their advantage. Meanwhile, immigrants themselves often face harsh realities. Many arrive expecting opportunity only to find they are being used as cheap labor. They too are caught in a cycle of underemployment, forced to take positions beneath their qualifications. For Canadian workers, this creates the perception of being pushed aside, while for immigrants, it leads to disappointment and disillusionment. Both groups are victims of the same system of exploitation. What makes this situation particularly dangerous is the role of government policy. Instead of protecting citizens and ensuring balance, policies often favor corporate agendas. Canadians see rising costs, shrinking opportunities, and leaders who seem more focused on immigration targets than on solving real issues. This fuels distrust and resentment, creating a political divide that threatens to grow wider with each passing year. Chapter 4. Canadians pushed out. For many Canadians, the most painful reality is watching jobs slip away despite their qualifications. Skilled professionals in fields ranging from healthcare to banking often find themselves overlooked as hiring practices tilt in favor of immigrants. Employers justify these decisions with vague claims about experience or availability, but for locals, it feels like systematic exclusion. This sense of being deliberately bypassed fuels anger and mistrust in both institutions and the job market itself. The loss of opportunities is not limited to high-skilled roles. In small towns and rural areas, jobs in logistics, manufacturing and services are increasingly filled by immigrants, leaving locals to compete for the few positions that remain. This has created a visible divide between communities. Immigrants often cluster in areas of economic growth, while Canadians in other regions see their options vanish, reinforcing feelings of abandonment by both corporations and government. This phenomenon also extends to industries once considered secure. Retail and hospitality, for example, now rely heavily on immigrant labor. Canadians attempting to break into these fields are often sidelined or forced into precarious part-time work. For many, the dream of climbing the economic ladder has been replaced by the reality of struggling to survive. The promise of opportunity that once defined Canada is fading, replaced by a harsh reality of exclusion. The psychological impact is enormous. Canadians no longer see their country as a place that values their contribution. Instead, they feel reduced to second-class status in their own homeland. This has fostered a culture of resentment and division, where locals view immigrants not as neighbors, but as competitors. The failure to address these concerns risks deepening divisions that could destabilize the social fabric of the nation. Young Canadians in particular are being squeezed out of the job market. Many cannot find entry-level positions because they are filled before they even get a chance to apply. As a result, they face delayed independence, prolonged reliance on parents, and a future filled with uncertainty. This erosion of opportunity creates a generation less confident in their prospects and less trusting in their institutions. The outcome is clear. Canadians are being pushed aside, both economically and culturally. Whether through hiring practices, wage suppression, or government policies that fail to prioritize them, locals feel excluded from the very opportunities they were promised. This growing sense of displacement is reshaping Canada's national identity, creating cracks in a society that once prided itself on fairness and inclusivity. Chapter 5. What this means for Canada's future. If these trends continue, Canada faces a divided future. On one side will be those who manage to find a place within the system, and on the other, those who feel permanently excluded. This division threatens to erode the very foundation of the country's stability, as more Canadians lose faith in institutions that appear to no longer serve them. The consequences of this disillusionment will ripple through politics, culture, and the economy for years to come. The next generation may be the hardest hit. With opportunities shrinking and wages stagnating, many young Canadians may choose to leave the country in search of better futures elsewhere. This brain drain would rob Canada of the talent and innovation needed to sustain its growth, weakening the nation's ability to compete globally. The irony is that while immigration continues to rise, many of the country's own citizens may be forced out. At the same time, the risk of growing inequality looms large. As immigrants and Canadians compete for the same jobs, divisions will deepen. If wages remain suppressed and opportunities continue to vanish, resentment will intensify on both sides. Canadians will feel betrayed, while immigrants will feel exploited, creating a cycle of mistrust that will be difficult to break. The social fabric of the nation will be tested as never before. This crisis also poses a challenge to Canada's national identity. The story of Canada has long been one of inclusivity and fairness, but if citizens feel abandoned in favor of outsiders, that narrative crumbles. Without reforms that restore balance, the country risks becoming a place where opportunity exists only for some, not for all. The values that once set Canada apart will be overshadowed by frustration and division. There is still time to change course, but it requires bold action. Policies must prioritize Canadian workers while ensuring fairness for immigrants. This means cracking down on corporate exploitation, enforcing wage standards, and rethinking immigration strategies that value numbers over integration. Without these changes, Canada's future will be one of conflict rather than collaboration. The choice is clear. Canada can either address the ugly truth of its jobs crisis or ignore it until the damage is irreversible. The stakes are not just economic, but cultural, political, and generational. Unless Canadians are placed first again, the nation risks losing both its identity and its promise. The path forward depends on recognizing the problem and demanding solutions that put fairness back at the heart of Canada's job market. If this breakdown of Canada's jobs crisis spoke to your reality, don't let the conversation stop here. Hit the like button, share this video so more Canadians wake up to the truth, and subscribe for more eye-opening stories. And tell me in the comments, do you feel like immigrants are being prioritized over Canadians in the workforce? Let's talk about it.